Hello, everyone, and thank you all for joining us for our final webinar in our spring-winter season for 2021. Today, we'll be talking clean and equitable mass transit. Our speakers have a fantastic panel prepared with a lot of information for you all. So thank you all for joining us. My name is Simbiat Yusuf. I am the Member Relations Manager at Fourth. And we have some news and announcements before I pass it along to our moderator, Sabrina Cerquera, who is a program associate at Fourth. Attendees, we ask that you please be sure to submit all your questions during the webinar through the attendee chat. And we will get through your questions towards the end during our Q&A portion of the webinar. And a little bit about Fourth, we want to start with our introduction in case you've forgotten about Fourth or this is your first time joining us for a webinar. Fourth is a nonprofit trade association advocating for smart transportation. We are working in 4 main focus areas, which are our demonstration projects, policy advocacy, industry development, and innovations. Through all of these efforts, we aim to advance equitable, clean transportation for all. And again, we cannot do this without the support and of our members, sponsors, and partners. We want to use this opportunity to thank them all for supporting the mission at Fourth, supporting the work we do at Fourth, and supporting these webinar programs. If you yourself are at an organization and you don't think they're a member of Fourth, or you think they would be good candidates to be a member of Fourth, you can reach out to me, Simbiat Yusuf at simbiaty@fourthmobility.org, and we can get the information started, connect over email, and discuss some benefits of being a Fourth member. Oh my gosh, this is exciting. Program highlights. The Roadmap Conference is coming up. We are just weeks away from the virtual Roadmap Conference, which will be a 3-day, June 14th through the 16th, not 3 full days, or 3 half days of content. If you haven't, it's not too late. You can register today. Fourth members, reach out to me to learn how you can register with the discount code and get access to the content. If you are still thinking about sponsoring as well, it is not too late to sponsor as well. So you can reach out via the website to learn more information about the program, the agenda, the speakers, and sponsorship opportunity, roadmapfourth.org, or you can reach out to Fourth International Marketing Manager Ashley Duplanty on the email listed on your screen. And with that, I will pass it along to our amazing moderator today, Sabrina.
Good morning or afternoon or evening, wherever you are. My name is Sabrina Cerquera. I use she and ella pronouns, and I'm a program associate at Fourth. It's an honor to host this panel today and to hear from all these amazing speakers. So I'll start us off with just introducing who we have today. We have some amazing people. We'll be starting off the presentation with Jason Yan, who's the Director of Sales Operations at Build Your Dreams, BYD, Coach and Bus. He has managed electric bus project development for pre-design through final design acceptance, production, test drives, everything. And now he currently oversees the Central U.S. sales region. Then we have Margarita Parra, who is International Program Director at Clean Energy Works. She leads the transportation portfolio in Latin America and the U.S. Margarita has worked for 2 decades in Latin America, China, India, and the U.S. to reduce local air pollution and global carbon emissions for transportation. And we'll be ending our panel today with María Fernanda Ortiz, who is a e-mobility and urban analytic consultant in Bogota, Colombia. She has led Bogota's clean transportation, including her work with the Transmilenio development of the largest electric bus fleet in Latin America. Additionally, Maria was involved with the design and implementation of Bogota's first metro line. So we'll be hearing, in addressing what's been happening, so we'll be hearing about the amazing work that's happening in Bogota. And with that, I want to acknowledge what is happening in Colombia right now. I'm a first generation Colombian. I know there's multiple Colombians on our call. And so I just want to take a moment to acknowledge the national strike that's been going on in Colombia since April 28th, and acknowledge those lives that are lost, the lives that are on the streets and are fighting, and the many people who are just doing their best to survive. I also want to acknowledge that today, May 25th, is the 1-year anniversary of the murder of George Floyd. Since this 1 year, we have seen collective outrage throughout the U.S. towards racism, police brutality, socioeconomic status, and many other things. So I just want to sit with that for a moment to acknowledge that today might be heavy for many of us, and for us to think and reflect on sending love to all people, and to think what has changed in this past year and what hasn't, and what can we do to change. Many of the people whose lives have been lost should still be alive, should be living joyful lives, should have access to clean energy and air to breathe and be with their families. So I hope that we honor those lives, and those lives should be enough to inspire many, not just after. So thank you. As we start off, I want to kick us off with a question to our panelists. So I'll ask our panelists to turn on their webcams, and then feel free to turn it off when you're done. The first question is, what city have you visited and enjoyed their mass transit, and why? And I invite our audience to also answer that question in the chat. So I'll kick us off, and then I'll pass it over to Jason. So city that I've visited and enjoyed their mass transit. I haven't traveled internationally, but I really enjoy DC's transit when I've been and lived in DC. So it's easy to get around.
Thank you very much for your question, and it's great to be in today's meeting. And I wish you can hear me clearly. So basically, yeah, I visit a lot of different cities in the United States, and I currently live in Los Angeles, and I was in San Francisco 5 years ago, and I lived in Chicago. So most of the major city in the United States, their public transportation system is quite impressive. For example, like the Chicago, they have the subway, they have multiple lines, and they have one of the largest the transit bus fleet in U.S. So, and it's very convenient because I went to the school in Chicago back in 2010. So I basically didn't need a car. I would just take the public transportation system and buy the card, and any card. It is just it's just very convenient no matter whether you go to the downtown or even to the suburban area. So it's quite impressive with all the kind of like the combinations, subway and even the paratransit and also the fixed route. So it's quite impressive. And and Los Angeles, they're doing the same thing. So even the traffic in Los Angeles is a little bit, is well known. But the public transportation system is quite good, and as long as Denver, they have a lot of the transit buses. So major city are doing pretty good, and for the small and mid-sized cities, right now they use the combination of paratransit and fixed routes. So it supports the citizens' life, especially last year during the COVID. Without the public transportation system, I mean, it will be really tough to get through the COVID-19 time.
Thank you, Jason. Margarita?
Good morning to everybody. I'm so glad to be here, Sabrina, and thank you for your words about Colombia. I'm from Colombia, and having 3 Colombians on this panel is just amazing. I've never seen such a crowded Colombian panel in the US, so thank you for having us and for those words to those Colombians now suffering. In terms of public transportation, I do love buses and trains and everything that moves. And every city I go, I like to try it on. And I just say that maybe my favorite so far, just because it was so different, is in Shanghai, the maglev, which is that train that goes from the airport to the city. And it's actually this magnetic levitation technology where you can actually be flying on a train. So it's just fascinating. But I love all kinds of buses and minibuses to informal paratransit. As Jason say, I enjoy moving around in public transport everywhere.
Thank you. And lastly, Maria.
Hi, everybody. I was having a connectivity problems, but I think that I'm here now. I'm very happy to talk to you and to talk about public transportation and the system that is running today in Bogota. And I have to say that I really enjoy our system here because it's very, very complex, and for transportation planners, and I am a transportation engineer, is very happy to see. It's very good to see a very complex system running so good. That is the case of Bogota. And I my first experience in an electric bus here. It was very exciting. So for me, the system in Bogota is great to know and to know about it. And I also enjoy a lot the system in London. I really enjoy the buses in London because I love to see the city and the people on the street, and to see the infrastructure and the urban like realm of the city. So for me, it's a very good experience to have this surface transport modes. I prefer to be on the surface. I like metro systems, but I prefer buses in that case.
Awesome. Thank you all our panelists for starting us off and kicking us off with that question. You're welcome to turn off your cameras. And I'll launch it over into a poll question for our audience to fill out. So the question reads, have you experienced e-transit buses? Yes or no? Okay, we're going to close that poll and we're going to launch into the second one. If you have, what's the difference that you noticed right off the bat first? Or what resonated with you? Was it the no noise, the cooler temperature, the comfortable ride, no tailpipe emissions, or something that we're missing? Okay, we're going to close this now. Awesome. So thank you. We're going to get right into it. So we'll be starting off with Jason Yan. We'll be talking about BYD battery electric transit buses. Jason, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Again, I appreciate Margarita and Sylvia to coordinate this meeting, and I really appreciate it. And so my name is Jason, and I'm from BYD Coach and Bus. I joined BYD back in 2016, and I'm currently located in Los Angeles, California. BYD is the headquarters in the North American, located in Los Angeles, and we have the manufacturing facility in Lancaster, which is about 1 hour away from the downtown of LA. So today I will just give you guys the quick introduction of our company and share some case study about the battery electric buses we have in the United States. So it was a very good news, and last month we were listed in one of the 100 most influential companies in the Time magazine and BYD as the scaling electric transportation. So BYD, we have multiple business divisions even in the North American market. So we have the electric forklifts, electric transit buses, battery electric high floor commute coach, electric truck, and electric passenger vehicle, electronics and battery, because we are one of the largest battery designer and manufacturer in the world, and also the Skyrail and Sky Shuttle. There's one case is very interesting right now because, as you know, 2028 there's Olympic Games in Los Angeles. In order to improve the downtown traffic and condition, so BYD proposed the Skyrail and Sky Shuttle project, the proposal to the city of Los Angeles, and we're very honored to be selected to provide a detailed design, detailed proposal to the city of Los Angeles to see how we can improve the traffic before the 2028. And also last week, we got a fantastic news for the global market. We recently delivered 1 million battery electric vehicles to the entire world, European market, Asian market, and also the American market. So we are a global company. We have 250,000 employees, and we have the industrial campus in 5 different continents, and over 850 local employees work in California, United States. And we're the global leader of the electric buses. As I mentioned, we delivered 1 million battery electric passenger vehicles, but we have delivered over 60,000 electric buses worldwide. And the last month, we just delivered the number 500 electric buses in US. We are proud to have to work with the local union in California and provide the job opportunities to all the citizens in Lancaster. And also the entire manufacturing facility is ISO 9001, and everything can be made in the US. So I would like to share some case study with you to discuss with you how we achieved the zero emission goal to help the customer to achieve the zero emission goal. So the first case is Stanford University. Okay, the Stanford University started to operate the BYD battery electric buses since 2014. They have over 30 BYD battery electric buses, including the 30-foot K7M and also the 40-foot K9M. So those electric buses used to commute their students, scholars, visitors, and everybody in the Stanford campus from the building to building, from the campus to other campus. So the testing run from the 2014, the actual official, the commute service started to provide it in 2015. And right now, the BYD electric bus fleet already ran over 2.5 million miles in Stanford University campus. And second case is the AVTA, Antelope Valley Transit Authority. So the fleet currently have over 60 BYD battery electric buses, low floor transit buses. They have the 35-foot, 40-foot, and 60-foot articulate low floor transit buses. And over 30 more buses are in production and pending to deliver to the customer. They start to run officially provide the service, the transit service to Los Angeles County in 2014, and it's already ran over 5 million miles for on all those BYD battery electric buses. So AVTA's the target is in before the in 2022 they're gonna fully electrify their entire the transit fleet in Lancaster. Okay, Okay, hold on a second. I saw the question in the chat books, and I'll answer those questions after I finish this last page. So the last case I would like to share with you is the Genentech. It's a reputable high-tech company in Silicon Valley. So this company has over 20 battery electric high-floor commute coach. As you can see in the picture, that's a double-decker the battery electric commute coach. It can have over 80 passenger seats, and it provides the service to pick up the employees from the Genentech from the San Francisco downtown and commute them to the main office. So the round-hour buses since 2018, they have 35 commute coach and also the 45 double-decker. And we not only provide the buses, as you can see, those charging equipments. We provide the turnkey solution for the charging infrastructure to the Genentech. So basically, all the charging the equipment can be smart charging. So all the buses will be plugged in during the overnight, but the system will tell the customer or tell the fleet what time is the best to charge the bus to make sure they have enough 100% SOC bus to be operated in the next morning, and also to maximum to save the money on the electricity bill, because in the California there is the demand charge and also the peak rate and off-peak rate. So the smart charging system will analyze what time is best for the customer to charge the bus in order to have the best performance of the buses. So that's basically all the slides I have. I would like to share with you more. If you have any question later, I can discuss with you. But first of all, I would like to answer the question you just mentioned. So the first question I saw is how many of those 500 buses have been in the cold weather cities, and how's the range held up? Do you have any case study you can share? Yes, I can share with you. So the 500 buses are dedicated in the United States. We deliver over 60 battery electric buses in Canada. So for example, like the Grand Parra Transit in Alberta and Toronto Transit, they have 10 of the 40-foot, and also the Vancouver, there is a tour company called the West Coast Sightseeing. They have our battery electric buses and the coach and operate in Canada in the cold weather the areas. So the bus range is about from 150 miles and all the way to the 250 miles. It depends on how much battery capacity you want to add into the buses. But of course, the HVAC and the heating will consume a lot of power, so it depends on the customer. If the customer wants to install the diesel heater or the hybrid heater to maximum the battery performance, we can do that. And also we have some the program like the preheating program to help the customer to minimize the consumption from the heating to the batteries. Yeah, I think that's the only question I saw in the chat. And to mention about the cities, so like I mentioned, in Canada we have the Toronto, Vancouver, Grand Parra, and even in the United States we have the buses in Maryland and also Wenatchee, Washington State, and also the Walla Walla, and Indianapolis, Indiana. So they're pretty cold during the winter.
Thank you, Jason. We'll gather any of the other questions that remain towards our Q&A. And I know that Fourth can attest to being in BYD buses because we had a wine tour last year at Roadmap, or the year before, a couple years before that, on BYD buses. So thank you. I'll be passing it over to Margarita. Feel free to join us. Thank you.
Thank you, Sabrina. So thank you for inviting us and inviting me. I've been in some of these webinars in the Roadmap conference, which is coming up as well as a speaker. And it's always great to share what we're doing, and specifically now what we're doing in Latin America. And it's great to follow Jason because actually the story of BYD in Latin America is a great one. And part of those 6,000 buses that he mentions from outside the US that he's also delivering, and some of that, about a few thousand are in Latin America. So that's a great story. A little bit about us. For some of you who don't know who Clean Energy Works is, which is I'm working, and I'm the Director of Transport and International Programs there. Clean Energy Works is a small nonprofit based in the US, and our mission is really to accelerate inclusive investments in cost-effective energy solutions to open the clean energy economy to all. And this is very important because we do believe that we can really achieve climate and equity goals at the same time. We work in different geographies. I won't go too much into this. We work in different states in the US, of course, and in Latin America and in a few countries. We're very small, so we always work in coalitions, and we work across different technologies. And in this case, I'm just going to talk about our work on transit. Because we're small, as I say, we join forces with other organizations, and internationally, we've been working with these actors that you can see there. World Resources Institute being one of our main partners in our work outside the United States. Also, is going to be also an actor in the US as well on transit electrification and school bus electrification. And we're working closely with the C40 and ICCT, the International Council on Clean Transportation. How we're doing in terms of e-buses in Latin America, just to offer the other view from what Jason told us in the US. So you may have heard that outside China, Latin America is the region that has more e-buses. This is an eBus radar website that if you guys are interested, it would be great to check it out. And you can see that all across our region, there's been deployment of electric buses, which is great to see. And the leading cities are Santiago and Bogota. So I'm so happy we have María Fernanda Ortiz here because she's one of the person in charge of bringing those electric buses to the city, which is also my home city. But there is still despite this progress, there's still a lot that we have to do. And there is a lot of factors that we still have to overcome to really get to full scale and full deployment of electric buses in the region. I must say as well, before I talked about the barriers, that one of the motivations that I think makes Latin America doing this transformation much quickly is the imperative of air pollution. Many cities really have heavy air pollution, like Santiago and Bogota, that really are pushing for this replacement of diesel buses into zero emissions. But yes, despite the high political willingness, we have some obstacles and some difficult barriers, and my NGO and others are trying to actually overcome these barriers. So those are the higher upfront cost, which actually in the US is still the case too. But when you think about countries where the currency is much devaluated than the dollar, when you think about fluctuating and volatile currencies, and also the fact that the earnings and the people paying the fare for transit is in local currency, and that's actually the revenue to pay for a technology that is costing dollars, is really hard. So that is a very high barrier, and we're going to talk about that during this short presentation. But there are others: institutional learning, regulatory updates, industry readiness, and of course now COVID is actually, and the economic impacts from COVID is actually impacting this deployment. I will show some graphs that I'm sure all of you are familiar about electric buses and how different they are in terms of course, the benefits environmentally. I won't talk about it. I assume all of you already are familiar with the environmental benefits. In terms of the economic benefits, we know that the cost upfront is higher. We can see here in this graph. This is from North Carolina and some work that we did with Cadmans. But when we look at the total cost of ownership, that means how much it costs to run these buses in the long run. This is a 15-year analysis. You can see that they are competitive. And in some cases, they are much better because of the savings on operation and maintenance, how much the fuel costs and how much the maintenance of these buses cost. But this 15-year period really make really the importance that concessions in public transport should be about 15 years to recover all this cost. And those contracts normally are 10 or less years. So how we pay for that upfront cost, how we actually go about it. We have funding and financing, and each country, this is different. But in Latin America, we have very little federal grants, like in the US, we had that option. In Latin America, we don't have that option. Very few governments have those funds. So we had to think about the little funding that we can get and really combine it with financing, loans, leasing, and new business models that are attracting more investors. So I'll tell you a little bit about those business models. We have heard, of course, about a classical model where the owner of the fleet purchased the bus. This was the case, for example, in Medellin with the first 64 buses, and it was Metro Plus who bought the buses. We had the leasing model, which was an innovation that came in Santiago, and those 700 buses were bought by two utilities, Enel and Engie, and they were leased to operators of transport. We had the same case in Cali with Celsia, and in Mexico City again with Engie and Metrobus, and those actually are articulated buses. But there's two models that I want to talk more today, which is one is the one used in Bogota, which is the bus ownership and separation model, and the battery separation model. Because these two, and I'm going to spend a little bit of time here, are very important because they are really designed to reduce the risks of really procuring electric buses. As you can see, not only the total cost of ownership is like a different variable that we are not used to dealing, but electric buses come with a new infrastructure. And I know all of you listening to fourth webinars are aware of this. Building that public infrastructure for electric buses is really a different task. And this is why electric utilities are being very interested and have made this possible. But transport companies in general have not been rated in kind of like the most creditworthy counterparts, because public transportation in many cities is not a for-profit venture. Most of these operations require subsidies from governments. In fact, in Europe, is national subsidies and nationally investment. So when you look at transport companies, some of them barely recover all their costs. So it's a sector that really has higher financial risk. And therefore, we need to innovate on financial models. And this is the same case in the US, I would say. So in Santiago, those utilities really absorb all that financial risk and they lease to the operators. And in Bogota, and María Fernanda will share more, there is this contracts that the transit agency have separate for the ownership of the fleet and separate from the operation of the fleet. And these two actors can be coupled or decoupled, but each of them is specializing in what they're good at, and therefore I think there's less financial risk. And with that model, that separation of ownership and operation, we brought this almost 1,500 buses to Bogota that are going to be on the road soon. But there is another model which is really even more innovative, which is about battery leasing. And some actually of the proposals in the US for school buses actually are talking about this model too. So this is relevant. So battery leasing is a model, and we have one case in Sao Paulo in Brazil where the manufacturer or the utility can actually purchase the bus, the battery, and the transport company purchase the body of the bus. Therefore, being a co-investors, the costs are reduced for both of them. So this is a more cost-effective transaction. In the case of battery leasing as such, BYD and Jason, this is a great case that you should be very proud of, is innovating, and it has, with this transport company, transport 15 buses in which BYD sold the chassis and the body and to the company and is leasing the battery. They're just started in use last year, so we really don't have a lot of data. And of course, COVID hit. So it's really we cannot talk about much about that case study, but I really feel that model is going to really bring better numbers for scalability. And in battery separation, there is another model which we, Clean Energy Works, believe is even more inclusive, and meaning is even much a better way to scale and to get speed in terms of how we procure these buses, and is a model based on the method pay as you save, which is a transaction that has been used in different sectors in building efficiency, in public lighting, in other sectors of the economy. And in this case, the utility makes an investment on those grid assets, the battery and the charging infrastructure, but instead of doing a leasing, it's actually a cost recovery transaction, and it can be recovered through the electricity bill. That means, yes, changing some of the regulatory structures, both in transport and in the power sector, for us to do that investment. It has not been tried in transport. We got an endorsement from the Global Innovation Lab for Climate Finance to use this instrument, and we have one feasibility study that we did for Lima, and we're trying to work in Colombia to see if we can implement this in different cities as well. With this model, we hope that there is more affordability of the systems, and of course, utilities have a lot to gain with this. So I'll leave you with these ideas and more questions so we can answer, but how can we really power new business models so that we can actually afford more electric buses. And I think that goes for all regions. Latin America, this is some lessons that we're learning, but I think this can be applicable to the US. So we need to create incentive programs, and which is what has worked in Colombia with the National Strategy for Electric Mobility. We have some fiscal incentives, and those should actually be applied to the bus, the batteries, the charging infrastructure for all asset owners. We need to reduce risk, and for that we need to create mechanisms that includes insurance policies and guarantee funds because of the inherent new risk that these technologies have, and the also proper risk that the sector has. As I mentioned, the transportation sector has some already risk associated with the operation. So we need to make sure that we bring the insurance companies, we bring different banks that really can design these mechanisms to reduce the risk across, and of course the guarantee from the city governments is very important. We need to have concessions that last for the whole period in which an electric bus can be recovered. That's about 15 years, and that's very important in how transit operations are managed. And we need to accelerate the uptake of power regulations that really allow for smart charging, that allows for even vehicle-to-grid integration. I know with transit buses, there is still a lot to learn there, but we believe that the faster we update those regulations, we really allow the participation of utilities. And with that, these inclusive mechanisms that will really allow for cities who can afford those buses to bring them online. So I leave you with that. I hope that was at least provocative and complimentary, and really want to shout out for María Fernanda to tell us the case study of Bogota, a city in a developing country who's becoming an example of bringing electric buses.
Awesome. Thank you, Margarita. I just wanted to remind everyone to feel free to send any questions in through the attendee chat, and I'll be passing it over to Maria now to tell us about Bogota.
Thank you very much, Sabrina and Margarita, for having this introduction to the case of Bogota, because as Margarita said, that was like our main challenges here, and the funding and the financing of these kind of models for the cities and for cities in developing countries. These are a very important point and a very big challenge to solve for having this kind of projects in our cities. So I'm going to talk about the case study of Bogota, where, as Margarita said, we have purchased and awarded more than 1,400 buses, e-buses for Transmilenio in the last 2 years. And I'm very proud of having been part of this amazing process, because it was an amazing process for the city, for the people that participated in the process, for the companies, where we can find BYD, because BYD is our biggest provider of buses here as well. So this was and it's been a very amazing process for everybody to learn how to implement and how to achieve this kind of goals in terms of zero emissions buses in the cities. So how is the system in Bogota? That is very important to explain before getting into the details. So we have here an integrated public transport system that is compounded by a BRT component, that are the red lines in the map. And also we have the urban component, that is the blue lines in the map. We have right now e-buses into or operating into the blue one. We don't have yet articulated buses for the BRT, but I think that we are working into that point. We expect to have articulated electric buses in the next few years, because we have to buy fleet for the BRT component in the next 3 or 5 years. But today, and we decide to start the way into the electrification of the transit system with the urban component, where we can find like these 80 passengers buses that are very common in the market, and we feel comfortable to have that kind of buses in our system to try to start the path and to have in the next few years these articulated buses for Bogota. We also have here a cable car, and also we are building right now our very complex, as I said before, but we have our objectives clear, and this is very important to have these kind of projects in the cities. And as Margarita said, we have here a great political will in terms of transport and in terms of having better fleet and better projects for our citizens. So how was the process of these almost 1,500 buses in the city? We started in 2019 when we have this big goal of buying more than 3,000 buses for Bogota for the blue component. And we decided to have, in that point, about 600 buses, electric buses for the city. So in that point, we decided to have a tender process just for e-buses and for assuring or for be sure that we're gonna like receive the proposals of e-buses and to have this minimum for the city. We decided to have this in-house structuring process. That is, in our country, it's very weird to have this in-house because commonly the cities decide to contract other consulting firms to do this, but Transmilenio, as the managing partner or as the managing entity in charge of the public transportation system, decide to do this in-house, and this was a very important decision. We did in 2019 4 tender processes because we decided to have our buses as a result of a tender process as a context, because Santiago, for example, as Margarita said, decided to have it with the current operators in the city, and also was the case of Cali here in Colombia as well. But Transmilenio decided to have this context and to have these tender processes in terms of having different stakeholders participating of the process, better prices, and also to have better quality for the system. So at the end of this year, we had for the system 483 e-buses, and also we purchased about 800 Euro 6 buses for the city. So we had this mix that in terms of energy will be like good for the city in the next year. And the buses that we are replacing here are in very bad quality. So this is a good an improvement, a very big improvement for the city. We had in 2018 and in 2020 and 21, we had about 5 tender process more to have the market and all the city change. And we decided to have more e-buses for the system. And why today we have these about 1,500 buses, because everything in this market and in this sector change every time, and we have to be flexible to do different decisions, to make different decisions, having the information of the market. So we decided to open the bids and to open the tender process for more e-buses for the city because we were very happy with the results. So what was like the key elements in the process? So Transmilenio, as I said, decided to have this structuring process in-house. So trying to have all the experience of the public sector and the experience of Transmilenio of having more than 20 years operating the public transport system in the city, to do this, to change the paradigms and to do this project. We had a lot of political will. Today we still having that, and even we changed the government in this period between 2019 and today. We changed the government. We still have this with this project and this process. We also had, as Margarita said, that is very important, the economical support from central for the sector. That is very important because all the stakeholders here that we. So this economical support is key for having a successful project. It was a very hard process. As I said, we had this different tender process, but we were very clear that we had to continue, and we had the capacity to recognize what changes do we have to make for having this project at the end. So we had the capacity to make big changes, to change the models every time, because we had about 4 different business models in these different rounds of tender process. And we had all the time this multidisciplinary team working side by side from different perspectives, the financial one, the technical, and also the legal, that is very specific in every country and every city. And the last one that is very, very important, we have having a permanent conversation with private sector, with financial entities, insurance companies, and other stakeholders that are very important to have this kind of projects. I think that is Margarita already explained this, so I'm gonna go to the next slide. That is the business model of Transmilenio. That is very important for having this. We have 2 concession contracts, one for the fleet provider, the other for the fleet operation, and also we have this kind of leasing contract, that is a renting contract with the infrastructure provider, that we call that. But here in the infrastructure provider, we have an LX, that is the energy provider or distributor to the city, because these kind of companies are very important in this process, because they are very specialized in terms of the recharging infrastructure and all other things that are key for the project. And this division, as Margarita said, is very important for the financial sector, because here we divided very well the risks, and we try to allocate in the best way the risks. And also we have companies that are very specialized in what they have to do. For example, the fleet provider is very specialized in get financing, in supervise the maintenance for the fleet, and to provide the fleet. And in the fleet operator, we have the operation and the maintenance for the fleet, and also the infrastructure. And we have these other actors that provide the infrastructure required for the fleet to the city, that is also very specialized in this task, at least at the beginning, because in the next model that we tried in Bogota, we have learned, so we decided to put this infrastructure provision into the fleet provider that works better in a third round of this kind of tender processes. Thank you very much for the time.
Okay. Gracias, Maria. We're going to go into our Q&A right now. And actually, so I'll invite all the panelists to go ahead and turn their webcams on. So I actually want to start the first question off for Maria. The question that came in is, does the elevation of Bogota impact electric mobility at all?
Not at all. Today we have about 300 buses operating in Bogota, e-buses, and they are working very well. At the beginning, it is very important to have this pre-operative phase, to do all the adjustments and the arrangements that the fleet need to be working well in a specific context. And this preparative phase that it was very, very happy to have BYD on the manufacturer of the fleet is very important to not having problems in the operation phase. So no, the answer is no. We don't have problems related to that.
Thank you. This question can be for any of our panelists. This came at the beginning. What is the typical range between charging sessions for a battery electric transit bus?
Okay, so the typical range, because for the daily route, I'll just mention about the specific for the North American market. So because I'm not quite familiar with the Latin American market, the situation. So the typical route for the for daily range is about 150 miles to about 250 miles. That is very typical way, and some even less, like the 80 miles and 90 miles. And that is how we design the bus. So typical way for the battery electric buses is from 150 to 250. It depends on how many do you want. Yeah.
And this one's from Margarita. So you started talking about the barriers of scaled adoption of electric transit buses, and I wanted to know if you had any insight on when a person gets an battery electric bus, is there like a ratio on how many buses, diesel or natural gas buses, it tends to replace, or how do you go about that conversation? Which I imagine.
Yes, it's a good question because with the NGOs that we're working on, we're trying to explain to cities when they want to do that transformation of their fleet that it's actually no. Physically, you can put, if you have the same size bus, you can put exactly the same people in the bus, right? So you can have a 40-seater bus, electric or diesel. But when we think about how we plan for them, they're not one-to-one because, of course, we need to plan for the new infrastructure. So for diesel buses, it is already done. Like we already have all the petrol stations. But when we think about electricity and how we're going to do it, there's a lot of variables, different technologies. The photo that you have at the beginning, there's the pantograph kind of charging style. Of course, there is overnight charging, there is rapid charging. So there's a lot of different options that cities have to evaluate and see what's the infrastructure that they can have, how much it will cost to the city. And all of those things are no one-on-one. So I think what we, as NGOs, advise to cities is to really evaluate the different options and the technical feasibility and, of course, the financial feasibility for the city.
Awesome, thank you. I have one last question, and I'd love all our panelists to answer this. And so we have an audience of about 120 people today, and I wanted to know what you want our audience to take away with them today. Is it a call to action? Is it a fact? Is it a conversation? What do you think is important that our attendees today take with them?
Who do you want to start?
Maybe I'll start with Maria. We'll go backwards.
Yes, I think that the most important that I want to say is that you have to be very flexible and to what I'm offering to you to build and to
Oh no. I'll ask my
design sorry, are you listening to me?
Yeah, you're back.
Sorry. So I was saying that for me, the main message and the most important thing is to have the tools and to analyze what is happening in your city, in your context, what is the offer that is given to you the market, and also what you need to design your project. But you have a lot of options, as Margarita shows. You have a a lot of options today to have different business models, to be creative, and to have like the better design for your city and for your country. But it is possible because in Bogota we have a very difficult situation to have the money for paying and to have a sustainable project in time. But we did it, and we did it with this political with the goals very clear, and with our objective, listening to the market.
Thank you,
Margarita.
Yeah, I had to agree with Maria Fernanda. I think what I want you all to remember is that it's an inspiration. If a city like Bogota, which is really a city with a lot of socioeconomic difficulties, is not a wealthy city in terms of the developed world, then the US can do it. I feel like if they have, it's about the political leadership, which we did have in Bogota across 2 city governments, as Maria Fernanda was sharing with us. So I think I just want you to be inspired. And if you're an advocate, just say that the technology is there, that we just have to figure out all these different challenges that, of course, this new technology has, but it is possible to do it. And I know some of our cities have some targets to do it by 2035, by 2030. I think it's all doable. And that's why I want you to take with you.
And Jason?
It's all perfect. Right. I cannot agree more, though. Thank you. It's absolutely right. I agree.
You can find our presenters' contact information on your screen. Feel free to email them and continue the conversation there. And I'll pass it over to Cynthia to close this out. Thank you.
Thank you all so much for joining us. We have one more poll question. So it's, did you find this webinar informative? As we're closing things out for our our winter spring season. Thank you all so much for participating, and we do appreciate you all, and we appreciate sharing the knowledge with you all. And I will close this poll so you have adequate time to see our presenters' contact information. I want to just take a moment to thank all of our panelists, Maria, Margarita, Jason. Thank you so much, Sabrina, for leading this webinar and moderating. This was a fantastic panel. I couldn't find a better way to end this season. As Sabrina mentioned, we know we did not get through all of the Q&A, but we will be following up with a webinar recap, which will have some additional resources. Some of the links mentioned by our speakers will also be included in that webinar recap, and also the webinar slides and the recording for anyone that came in late and missed anything. And as you know, we will be taking a summer break, but we will be back. We have a lot of things baking right now. We'll be back in August for our fall season. And if you haven't, if you're going to miss us a lot, you might as well join us for the Roadmap Conference in June, so you don't miss our faces. You catch some of the panelists here on the Roadmap panel. So continue the conversation. This is not a one-time conversation that needs to be had, but we hope that we can continue the conversation. We hope to see you in the future virtually, and hopefully someday in person when things get back to normal. So thank you all again for joining us, and we will see you all at Roadmap June 14th through the 16th of 2021. Thank you so much, and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you very much, all. Bye-bye.